Hey there, guys. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where in the country or where in the world you're at. I'm Lauren Rilling, and welcome to another episode of Simple Business Stewardship. Today, we're going to dive into the 5 biggest mistakes that I see business owners make, financial mistakes particularly. And these are mistakes that are really have the potential to cripple your business, even if revenue is good, even if you're doing a great job, even if your customers are happy. Did you know that 83% of businesses fail because of financial problems in their businesses? It's not because they're not providing an amazing product or service, it's because they don't know how to manage their company's finances. So, this is not something you can afford to ignore. And, we're all about being good stewards, we're all about continually learning and growing to become better stewards of the resources that God has given us. And so that's what we're going to focus on today. And hopefully, in this episode today, you're going to get a couple of new things that you can use and implement in your business to drive your profit, to get clarity on maybe some of the challenges that you're experiencing in your business and how you can overcome those. And maybe you'll find new opportunities for profit in your business that you didn't even see before. So, with that, let's go ahead and get into the first one. The first mistake that I see business owners make is not knowing their profit margins. So, there are two kinds of profit margins that we want to pay attention to. And I apologize if I sound all congested because I'm still getting over being sick, but not knowing your profit margins. So, there are a couple different types of profit margins. You've got your gross profit margins and your net profit margins. If you sell products, your gross margins are going to be really, really important. Or if you provide a service where you have contracted labor, contracted workers who are who are directly providing that service, then your gross margins are really important to pay attention to. Because if you sell something for $10, but it costs you $8 in contracted labor and materials to make it, then your gross margin is like $2 per product, right? Or per service provided. So what you want to do is look at how you can increase that gross margin. What can you do to raise prices or increase the quality so that you can raise prices without increasing the costs? Or what can you do to reduce your costs without compromising the quality that you're used to? So that's an important thing to look at, is what are your gross margins? And then when it comes to net profit margins, that is when you take your gross profit and then you subtract all the other business expenses. So all of your other overhead, things like your rent, things like your software expenses, things like your regular payroll. When you subtract all of your costs, that is what's going to give you your net profit. And what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of your income is going to come from your net profit. Your taxes have to get paid out of the net profit. And any money that you want to reinvest back into your business growth has to come from your net profit. So, knowing what you need to accomplish in terms of your net profit, both in dollars and percentages, is really important because you can identify if you're experiencing a shortfall. A lot of business owners want to focus on revenue, and we'll talk about that later on in this segment, but you've got to know and start with your profit margins and really figure out how much profit do I need to drive my business forward, both gross margins and your net margins. So that is super key. If you haven't been paying attention to that, then take a look at what your profit margins are and then look at what insights you can get about what you can change in order to become more profitable as you grow, so that you're not stagnant or becoming less profitable as you grow. All right, so that brings me to the second mistake, and that is bootstrapping the wrong things. So I love a scrappy entrepreneur. My friend Eva Daniel likes to say, scrappy, not crappy. And I love that mantra. I think that as you should be as resourceful as possible, even if your business is a multi-million-dollar company. it's always great to be frugal, to be discerning. I think that's part of stewardship, not to be cheap just for the sake of being cheap, but not spending money just because you can, right? Being aware of your expenses and being intentional is so important. And a lot of the times when we first get started in business, we're much more in tune with every single expense because it hurts a little bit every time you plunk down money, right? To grow the business. But it's easy to become very accustomed to these things. And at the same time, it's easy to spend money on the wrong things. So, where I see a lot of business owners trying to save money where they really shouldn't be, that's also very important, is on bookkeeping and your financial team. Am I a little bit biased when I say this? Sure, absolutely, because I see how detrimental. I've seen the detrimental effects of waiting too long to get help with your business finances. I've seen it over and over again, and I don't want that to happen to you. So, the first thing that I would absolutely invest in is a bookkeeper. Whether you are just starting your business now or you're making $10 million in revenue, if you don't have an amazing bookkeeper, that is one expense that I would absolutely create room for. There are a couple of reasons for this, and I don't do bookkeeping, by the way, but you need a bookkeeper. So, one of the reasons for this is that it is a lot more expensive to go back and have to clean up books later. Like by the time you grow and you're like, oh, maybe I should get a bookkeeper. If you have to go back, if that bookkeeper has to go back and clean up all the financial records, dig through bank statements, try to piece together your financial records, it's going to cost you a lot more than it would have if that bookkeeper had just gotten started with you from the beginning. So, if you don't already have a bookkeeper, or if you're not confident that your financial records are accurate, then that is, I would say, the number one thing to address immediately. We talked about knowing your profit margins. You can't really know your profit margins if you don't have accurate bookkeeping. So, hire a bookkeeper. You're going to get the benefits of being able to look at your financial reports and to be able to use those financial reports to make good decisions to drive your business forward when you have them. But if you don't have them, you're still going to pay for it anyway. It's just that they're going to have to backtrack to get everything caught up and up to speed. So it's definitely something that I would not put off. I would not look at that as a wasted expense by any means. Hire a bookkeeper, make sure your books are in order, make sure that they're accurate and up to date. Uh, your tax preparer will be able to use those financial records to make sure that you're maximizing your tax deductions. A lot of times businesses miss out on tax deductions because they're just trying to do the books themselves. And so your CPA isn't going to comb through and make sure that everything is correct. They're just going to take the information that you give them and prepare your tax return according to that information. So that's why it's really important to keep accurate, up-to-date record keeping of your financials from the beginning. So that is one thing. And then the other thing is you want to have a good CPA. I had this conversation with a friend of mine whose husband is a corporate attorney, and he's really busy. And, they charge a lot of money per hour, corporate attorney. You can guess how many hundreds of dollars, his time is worth, right, per hour. And it's like, probably $200 for him just to write an email or something like that. It's crazy. But he still insists on doing their own taxes. And I just keep telling them, I keep bugging them about it. Like, you need to go get a CPA. I hired a CPA even before financially it probably made sense, just because I didn't want to do it. And I think that's okay. It's going to be if you're sole proprietor, you just need a Schedule C. It's going to be a few $100s. And I think that's worth every penny just to take the stress of filing your own taxes away. But don't try to be scrappy in this area. Just get a good CPA who's going to do a great job on your tax return, preferably someone who has a sense of what a small business should be paying in taxes so that they can give you some guidance. And I think it's totally worth, um, you know, talking with a tax advisor, talking with a CPA who does tax advising, and making sure that you have a good tax strategy for your company. As you grow, that is something that it's better to be proactive about rather than to wait and see what your tax bill is. And then you're like slammed with this tax bill and you have to pay it out of your personal savings and it really sets you back or it puts you into debt. And now you're on a payment plan with the IRS. We don't want that. We want you to be proactive so that tax time doesn't have to be stressful. Tax time really can just be like, okay, I submit my paperwork, submit my books, sign the papers and sign the tax return. And maybe I owe a little bit or maybe I get a little bit back, but it shouldn't be a big deal. Can you imagine if it just wasn't a big deal, like how good that would feel? Um, so yeah, I definitely think that hiring a good CPA to do your tax return, someone who knows business taxes and is able to give you good advice on things like when you should elect to be taxed as an S corporation, really critical. You're gonna overspend in taxes. You're gonna donate $5,000 to $10,000 a year to the IRS if you don't switch to an S corporation when it's the right time for your business. So yeah, you can see the value right there of making sure that you have those two key team members on your team, right? That leads me to say that the bookkeeper and the CPA, they're going to do a great job of showing you what has already happened to your money. Now, those financial reports that your bookkeeper is going to give you, they are really critical for knowing what's happened to your money, but they also contain so many like strategic gems, just so much valuable information that you can take and you can get so much insight from about what's going on in your business and what you can do differently. So like we've already talked about your profit margins, that is one major piece of the puzzle, but there's even more that you can get out of it. And by having the right information, you can then take that information and turn it into strategy that aligns with your goals. And that's really where I come in as a fractional CFO and coach for Christian entrepreneurs, because we want to steward our money. So we have a certain value set, we have a certain mindset around the way that we want to approach our finances and our business and steward that money for God's glory and to take care of our families and to see our business thrive and to be able to continue our mission. And you've got to have good financial management and good financial strategy to do that. So I can help you come in and look at those financial documents, look at those financial reports, and help you clarify what your goals are so that we can really make sure that the finances are aligned with your goals, that you're moving in the direction of what you want to achieve. And some companies, you might not be quite at that point where you're ready to hire a fractional CFO, but you really do want to learn how to steward your money and look at your finances through that strategic lens and look at your business through a financial lens, so that you can grow your profit, pay yourself more, give more, feel not stressed about dealing with money, get really simple systems for managing your cash flow. And that's all in my course, Profit Launch Lab. And that is ending. I'm closing the doors on that at the end of the year. So you've got like 2 more days to sign up for that. And if you have any questions about it, let me know. But that is there for you as a resource to help you grow profitably in 2023 if you're not at the point where it makes sense for you yet to hire a fractional CFO in your business. But if you are at that point and you need that fractional CFO, be proactive about it. Don't wait until you have a financial crisis on your hands. We are much better at helping you be profitable when we can be proactive about looking at your goals and dreams, rather than helping you just solve a financial problem or a crisis. We can't do that. We can help you solve a financial crisis, but unfortunately, I don't have a magic wand. Like I wish I did, but it's a lot easier when your business is in good financial standing than when you've got something major happen and you go, oh, shoot, I really need help now, right? So we'd rather be goal-oriented and growth-oriented than problem-solving oriented when we can be. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox there. That leads me to the third mistake that business owners make. I dropped my paper. Okay. And that is hiring a team without having a plan. So, yes, I've just talked about why you need a financial team, why you need to hire these contracted, team members or work with a bookkeeper, CPA, and a fractional CFO, of course. But I see a lot of companies hiring people without knowing what their ROI is going to be, why they need this person. It really comes down to they get really busy as a business owner, but they have no idea what their profit margins are. They have no idea what their growth strategy is. They just think, I'm overwhelmed by the amount of work I have to do. So the answer must be to hire someone else. And that is not the way that you want to approach hiring. You have to know your profit margins. You have to have a budget for hiring people because otherwise you're going to have to fire them. You're going to have to fire them because you're not going to have enough money to pay them. So, no, you've got to get ultimate financial clarity so that you know what your parameters are for hiring. You also need to know exactly what problem you're trying to solve. To give you a little story, I was talking with a new client of mine who, oh, hello from Turkey. That's awesome. I was talking with a new client of mine who was thinking that maybe she needed to hire a COO. So we were talking about why, what sort of inspired this idea that you think you need to hire a COO. And it really all came down to she was feeling burnt out. She was feeling overworked. She felt like she had too much on her plate. And if she could hire a COO, then she could just sort of hand off the things that were taking up her time that she wasn't enjoying doing anymore. Now, that would have cost her another probably $3,000 or $4,000 a month. And it wouldn't actually help drive her revenue or increase her profit. So she didn't have a plan around this. So this was just going to be an added expense. And when we looked at her, when we created a budget, when we assessed her profit margins, when we looked at her goals and where she was trying to go, she came to the conclusion like, oh my gosh, I don't want to hire a COO. I don't want to commit $3,000 or $4,000 a month to hiring someone that I don't even really know what I need them to do. I just know that I feel too busy and overworked and like I'm not making enough money doing it. So the answer was really in the way that she was doing her contracts. It was really in the way that she was presenting her scope of work. She was experiencing scope creep with her retainer clients. She was really wanting to pivot in her business and offer more digital products and to change the way that she did her retainer work. And what we found was that she was able to free up a lot of time. We were able to make a cash flow plan so that she could look at how much financial runway she had to make these changes in her business. And what she really wanted to focus on was creating freedom of time for herself. And she wouldn't have been able to do that if she had just hired a COO without looking at it through that financial lens. She would have hired that person and then been even more stressed out and even more overworked because that would have been a disproportionate amount of spending into her budget, and it wouldn't have necessarily generated more revenue for her. So really important that when you go to hire a team, you understand exactly why, you understand your margins, you understand how much money you have available to hire for, and exactly the results that you need this team member to produce to help drive the company forward. All right. So hiring without a plan, a very, very expensive mistake. The next thing is, this is number 4. And I think someone put this in the comments in the previous post, but mistake number 4, really simple, but really important, not having a business budget. Now, I know that having a business budget can seem like an almost impossible task, or like, I don't have time for that, or hey, my expenses just kind of are what they are, right? So, why do I need a budget? I'm just going to look at my profit loss statement. I'm going to just look at what my expenses were from month to month, or I'm just going to look at my bank account and see how much money I have in the bank to spend. But just like you want to have a budget in your own personal life, it's super important to have a budget for your business, because the budget is what lets you take proactive control of your future business expenses. It lets you plan for both what you've got immediately coming up, and it lets you plan and save ahead for future expenses so that you really know the true cost of doing business. Now, an example that I like to give a lot is a laptop computer replacement, because we all use them. We all have to replace our laptop at some time. And so if you want to buy a $2,400 MacBook Pro once every 4 years, that means you need to set aside $50 a month. Your cost is $50 a month to have that laptop. And when you make your budget and you look at that savings, that line item in your budget, and you go, man, $50 a month is really not in line with sort of that seems out of proportion to me. I think I really need to downgrade my expectations, or I need to save an extra year. Or maybe you go, wow, I didn't know that it was only going to be $50 a month. That's like super affordable for me in my business. I'm gonna save $100 a month, and I'm gonna upgrade my computer once every 2 years just because I can and I want to. Hey, that's great, right? So that gives you control. That gives you the ability to see on one piece of paper, or on one app, or on one spreadsheet, this is exactly what it costs to run my business. So that way, if your computer breaks down and you have to go replace it by a new one, you're not going, oh, shoot, I don't know if I have enough money in my bank account, or I might have to go into debt for this. It allows you to proactively plan so that when you need the money's just there. Or if you have a conference that you go to every year and you know that it's going to cost a couple $1,000s, don't wait until the month before to go, oh, shoot, I've got to buy my plane tickets, and I just don't know if I can pay myself still, or maybe I have to borrow from my tax savings. Like, you don't want to have to do that. That adds stress, that adds chaos, that reduces the predictability of cash flow in your business. So take control. That's what I mean when I say take control with proactive measures, like using a budget to manage your business finances. When you are planning ahead for these one-time expenses or these random expenses, and you're saving a little bit each month, and you're making those things line items in your business budget, one, you are adding cash, you're preserving cash in your business. That is a sign of healthy business finances. And you really do see, oh, it's not just the $1,000 a month in recurring subscriptions and my insurance that I have. It really does cost a lot more than $1,000 a month, or however much it is, to run my business. Often when we are thinking about what we think our business expenses are, we want to paint a rosier picture than what they actually are, because we just think, okay, no, I'm not going to have to buy another truck for like 5 more years, so I don't have to think about that. But you really do, because you don't want to get stuck when those big ticket items come due, when it's time to replace those things or to purchase those things. You want to have the money available. So be realistic and plan proactively for it. So use a business budget. And when you use a business budget, you can really see, are my expenses in line with my profit goals? Are they in line with the profit margins that I need to achieve in order to grow the business, have the lifestyle as an owner that I want to have, be able to give the way I want to give? Is this budget in line with my current revenue? And if it is, and we have different ways of calculating different percentages for different industries and goals and the size of company that you have. So that's something I can help you with if you're not sure if your expenses are in line with your revenue, or if it's a healthy level. That's something I can help you with. But if your expenses are just keeping up with the revenue and you don't really have any margin or wiggle room and you're kind of operating month to month, not knowing if you're going to be able to cover all your business expenses, that means something is wrong, because you shouldn't be stressed out about your business expenses as a business owner. Okay, so that is something we want to fix. And having a business budget is a great tool to do that with. And that leads me to mistake number 5. I've talked a little bit about goals, but mistake number 5 is setting the wrong kinds of goals. And I should really say starting with the wrong kinds of goals. Most business owners start with a revenue goal. Like, I need to make this much money. I need to make $1 million a year. I want to be 7 figures. I want to be 8 figures. That's fine. Those are great goals to have, but they really don't mean anything without context, because you can have a $25 million business a year that is really not making any net profit at all, that is actually operating in the red, that's losing money. So it's really not about revenue growth as much as it is about profit growth, and what purpose are you giving that profit? How is your money helping you drive the mission that inspired you to become an entrepreneur in the first place? How is this revenue goal that you have connected to your personal goals? What kind of life are you trying to create for yourself? A lot of us quit our jobs because we wanted to have more freedom, whether that was flexibility with your schedule, or you saw the potential to earn more money, or both, or you just had this really big vision, really big mission, and you just knew that you had to start your own company to accomplish that. It could be a combination of all of those things. And so what we have to do is we have to start with those personal goals. And I call them the 3 I goals of income, ideal schedule, and impact. So when you have those 3 goals defined, then you can work backwards from there and figure out, what does my revenue need to be in order to achieve those 3 goals? That is, I would say, the foundational place to start. When you start there, then okay, if I'm going to bring home this much money, and this is the impact that I want to have on people's lives through my business, and this is the kind of schedule I want to have for myself. I want to be able to take a whole month off from work. Well, that's going to mean that your business operations and your business structure has to look a certain way, right? If you want to be able to work 3 days a week or take Fridays off, or have a lot of flexibility with when you come into the office, that's going to have an impact on the way you run your business. That's going to affect what goes in the budget and what gets cut from the budget. That's going to have an effect on your business model and the way that you grow your business, not just that you're going to go in there and work as hard as you can for 80 hours a week, because that's not going to cut it, right? So you have to grow your business in a way that is sustainable and is aligned with the kind of life that you're trying to create for yourself. And then from there, we can figure out, okay, based on those 3 goals, and based on your margins, and based on the profit margins that we're going to work to create so that you have healthy business finances, this is how much revenue it's going to take for you to get there. And so that is going to give you the clarity and the insight that you need, so that you have the kind of business that you love, so that when you reach that 7-figure mark, you're not saying, man, I really thought that when I reached 7 figures, that's when I was supposed to arrive. That's when I was supposed to have it made. I was supposed to be able to have my ideal income and have that ideal schedule. And I was going to love my business, and I was going to be impacting people in a way that is really meaningful to me. And instead, I just feel so stressed out, burnt out. I'm not making the kind of money I thought I would. The finances are all over the place. Operationally, we're stretched way too thin. We're month to month. We're going to go bankrupt if we don't make more money, right? That's not the entrepreneurial dream at all. And that is why we have to start with the basics, start with getting clarity around what those goals are, and make sure that we've got really solid financial management and financial strategy, so that you don't end up with that nightmare scenario, but instead you're consistently moving in a direction where you're experiencing more and more entrepreneurial freedom, increased income, increased margin, increased freedom of time, and your business is running smoothly, and it's able to be sustained as it grows. Okay, so those are the 5. So just to recap, not knowing your profit margins, big mistake. Bootstrapping the wrong thing. So not having a good bookkeeper and a good CPA and a good fractional CFO on your team to help you drive that strategy. Hiring people without a plan, trying to grow operationally without really knowing your budget for hiring or how it's going to affect your profitability as a company. Not having a business budget, so lacking control over your expenses and not planning proactively to cover those, not knowing, if your operating expenses are at a healthy ratio for the size and type of your business, and also setting the wrong kinds of goals, focusing on the things that are going to drive revenue but aren't necessarily going to drive profitability or the goals that you have that represent or that are represented by that revenue goal that you've got. So if you will focus on those 5 things, on your profit margins, on having the right people on your team, on making sure that when you hire, you've got a real plan in place, that it makes sense, and that you're fulfilling a role that is necessary for the growth of the company. When you have a business budget and when you start with the right goals and work backwards from there, you're going to see major transformation in your business. That is something I would love to help you with. So if any of this resonates with you, I'd love to hear what your takeaways are in the comments. Also, any questions that you have, please feel free to comment or send me a DM. And yeah, I would start with these things for 2023, and it's going to give you a lot of clarity as you look to grow profitably this year. All right, you guys, that is it for today. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you